Welcome to the Fandemic Presents Alone Star Reviews. This is a podcast about the things you love and the voices that don't. Each episode, I'm going to take a beloved movie, TV show, or something, go over some of the facts about it, and then read some of its worst reviews. I'll give my 2 cents and we'll find out if I agree or not. I'm the self proclaimed Emperor of Awesome, Bradley Butin, and this is Alone Star Reviews on YouTube, and then check it out on anywhere you get audio podcasts a little bit later. Wanted to start off this series with my favorite saga, at least Star Wars. And in my opinion, it's the greatest saga that's ever been told. Now, I just went through episodes 1, 2, and 3. So I was thought about doing Clone Wars next, but I think I'm gonna do all the movies and I'm gonna go back and do all the other stuff. So we'll get a little bit of bad reviews or Lone Star reviews from a little bit of everything. So, with that being said, a little bit of the dirty deets done dirt cheap. I have my 10-word summary. It is space opera, laser swords, Darth friggin' Vader. Go watch now, man. So Star Wars: A New Hope came out when I was really little, like before I was born. My first movie I ever went to the theater was Empire Strikes Back with my dad. I know I was pretty young there too. I don't remember that, but um, man, Star Wars growing up, I mean, we would always watch the VHS of all the Star Wars, and Star Wars is just, it sets your brain on fire and makes you think about things. And if you can't watch Star Wars and just get that wow sensation, man, I don't know. So finding out that there's some really bad reviews of A New Hope, that was kind of interesting. And I know everybody's entitled to their opinion, so that's fun. We will get into that in just a second. But before we do that, let's go over some of the reviews for Star Wars: A New Hope. And the IMDb rating for A New Hope is 8.6, so out of 10, so really high, as it should be. Rotten Tomato meter was 93%, and the audience score was 96%. So, I mean, well received movie. I mean, if it wasn't for Star Wars, there wouldn't be a lot of stuff we see today. So, a couple fun facts about the movie. And these are things I scoured the internet for. So whether they are true or not, I'm not checking sources on these, but just facts. George only did Star Wars because he couldn't do Flash Gordon. I did find that on a couple of different places, so I don't know if that's true or not. I think cool Flash Gordon would be awesome. I'm still waiting for that. I love the late '70s Flash Gordon, which is kind of funny because that was probably inspired by Star Wars to get that done. Queen soundtrack, that was fantastic. Number two, George wrote 4 screenplays for the movie. So going through the whole process of 4 changes, I would like to read all that. I think you can read some early drafts of Star Wars or the Star Wars online. Another one, the original title of the film was The Adventures of Luke Starkiller, as taken from the Journal of the Wills Saga 1. That sounds pretty freaking cool. So, I mean, I'd love to see. And they did work in the Wills in The Last Jedi. So that's kind of cool. Let's see what else we got. Jodie Foster was offered the role of Leia, but because she was under contract to Disney, she couldn't take it, which now Disney owns Star Wars. Kind of cool. Let's see here. And David Prowse, who played Darth Vader, had no idea that he wasn't going to be the voice of Vader. Yeah, I've heard that several times, man. That's kind of cool. All right, now moving on to the reviews. I base my reviews strictly on the title alone. So if I mispronunciate things, I'm sorry. It's either that's the way that it's written in the review, or I'm just being an idiot. So, you could take it as it goes. But let's get going. I like to keep these to about under 20 minutes. So, the first review, the most overrated movie of all time. This is from 1999. So let's see if it has any legs. I liked this movie when it first came out. As a teenager, I saw it about 7 or 8 times. There was nothing else to do on the weekends. About 20 years went by before I saw it again on cable. How time dulls the memory. Star Wars now has an odd, nauseating effect on me. The 70s haircuts, laughable costumes, cheesy dialogue, fake visual effects, corny music, uninteresting soap opera plot. I could go on and on. I sat there before the flickering screen, enveloped in Star Wars, suffocating stupidity, wondering how in the hell I could have ever liked this thing. I finally came to my senses and turned the channel after hearing John Williams' irritating Darth Vader theme for the 600th time in the first 40 minutes. Why George Lucas decided we needed to hear his high volume musical cue every time we see Darth Vader on screen is beyond me. Maybe he just thinks his audience is extremely stupid and is incapable of remembering that Darth Vader is supposed to be evil. I don't know. It would be easy to dismiss this movie as nothing but fluff to entertain kids because that's all it is and all it was ever intended to be. But unfortunately, for many people, this thing has become their religion. Folks, get a life before it's too late. It's just a movie. So 70s haircuts in the 70s? Okay. Laughable costumes. You laugh at Darth Vader's costume? You're an idiot, man. Dude, this guy is an idiot. We're gonna give him full 5. We're gonna give him 5 haterades, 5 shots of haterade. Um, you're entitled. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but obviously, it did something for you if you watch it 7, 8 times as a kid. You, sir, are a dumbass. All right, moving on. We are going to go to a Lone Star review number 2. This one is called "An Ordinary Farm Boy Must Learn the Ways of a Jedi Knight to Save the Rebellion, which stands against an empire." Well, I mean, that's about what happened. So, Star Wars is no masterpiece or synthesis. See, I can't pronunciate. Or triumph of American ingenuity. Well, I mean, a lot of things spun from Star Wars. Okay, anyway, back to it. It is a fraudulent copy of several good works of literature. Lucas steals the idea of Frank Herbert in his work entitled Dune and plagiarizes even more of the unknown novel I cannot recall, as it is so obscure. He felt no need to give it credit. I have heard arguments which claim that The Lord of the Rings is just just as childish. That's my bad. But those arguments ignore the fact that The Lord of the Rings is a blatant and outright statement, a parallel to the horrors of the First World War. Additionally, the acting is phenomenal, the characters have depth, and the story has meaning. The authors of such arguments clearly view the battle scenes as similar to Star Wars, only having appeal because of the special effects. But things such as a gigantic war elephant actually represent something. whereas nothing is representative of anything in Star Wars. These elephants represent tanks, the new and deadly weapon that were finally used more frequently in war. I can overlook the discrepancies, such as the fact that the first time of the Death Star was used, and it took but a few seconds to fire. But when are when are the attacking Yavin? They must maneuver around the planet to reach the moon. As there are such discrepancies in most movies, however, I cannot ignore the lack of depth each of the characters has. Luke is like Dakota Fanning in War of the Worlds. He is paid to whine and scream and whine. But Uncle Owen, I was going to the Anchorhead arcade. Mm, Tashi Station, maybe? I don't want to work on the droids. His character is painfully dull. And the actor, Mark Hamill, lacks any sort of talent. None of the characters are relatable. None of them have any complexity. They are straightforward representations of archetypes with no combinations of emotions. In fact, they seem like they have no emotions whatsoever. Everything is superficial. I enjoy Star Trek. Here it is. The motion picture 10,000 times more than Star Wars. And the motion picture is one of the most painful movies I have ever watched. Watching Star Wars, I can picture each actor if they may be so honored by such a title. With a script in front of their eyes, it seems they are only reading a common acting saying goes, show, don't tell. But I have never been told a more boring story. Besides the painful, shallow acting, the plot is poorly written. There are no twists or turns, no interesting facets or components which one does not expect to appear. Everything is predictable. Everything is as plain as can be. Star Wars is a masterpiece of synthesis. I can't talk. I don't think I have ever seen a movie so perfectly blend plagiarism, horrid acting, a lack of depth and emotion and complexities and so many other despicable aspects. As for its ingenuity, well, if plagiarism and poor writing, acting, and character constitute ingenuity, then this movie deserves a 10 out of 10. If not, Star Wars definitely deserves nothing but scorn. Why so many have found this movie so enthralling, I will never understand. Mark Hamill can't act? What? Dude, this guy's an idiot. Man, Mark Hamill is one of the best Jokers we've ever gotten, man. Mark Hamill's done a lot of good acting. Just from January in 2009, I don't I don't think I think Star Wars is different. I mean, there's obviously, some interpretation be there, but um Lord of the Rings, man, I mean, kind of, yeah, they're cut from the same cloth. I mean, they're both fantasy. Star Wars is more fantasy than sci-fi, in my opinion. But man, all right, let's give this guy some haterade. This guy really has some hate. Tashi Station, I'm not gonna give you that one, man. The Anchorhead Arcade. I mean, I would go to the Anchorhead Arcade if there was one. It's Tashi Station. You get 4 shots of haterade. And you, sir, are a dumbass. All right. A Lone Star review number 3. This one is called Beginning of the End from 2006. Oh, this one starts with the Bible verse. Okay. Let's see where this goes. Paul to the Corinthians. When I was a child, I thought as a child and played as a child. But when I became a man, I put away my childish things. I got a lot of comics in here. I'm a 43-year-old dude. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, and all the I's are lowercase, which is it's kind of messing with me. I was living near New York City when the film was first released. I think this was a test release in the New York area. The original promo suggested a serious science fiction story along the lines of cult favorite Dune. It bombed. Shortly afterward, on a re release, Lucas got the promo he really wanted. Part fairy tale, part Jungian myth, part retro serial, and the rest is history. But the history of what? This film marks the beginning of the end of a serious filmmaking in America. Fairy tales are for children. The old serial films were fun, but badly made. The Jungian myths constitute a debatable psychobabble theory. Thus, what Lucas was really telling his audience in both film and promo was that all we needed to be children watching bad films written by Carl Jung, or at least the Jungian literary theorist Joseph Campbell, who was actually hired as a consultant on the film. Humans, to maintain their self respect, need to grapple with difficult moral issues. We need to mature and to learn how to relate to other human beings in complex and sometimes difficult situations. And we need the freedom to think for ourselves in such matters, to risk our own happiness and to live with the consequences. No one is saying that children should not enjoy fairy tales, and perhaps they really do need these things for psychological development. But even eventually, children need to grow up, to stop being children. Star Wars would not have been so damaging to this culture if it had presented itself as a children's film. But and that was the start of a new sentence. But Lucas was quite explicitly targeting as audience burnt out hippies, participants of the failed cultural revolution of the 60s, and in doing so, he began steering them toward the political decisions that would at last put our culture and its economy and its future in a terrible jeopardy. Voting for Reagan, selfishly demanding tax cuts, mockery of dissenters, and flocking into paganistic fundamentalist Christian churches seeking spiritual awakening, and as many now proclaim, apocalypse. Well, obviously, just one movie isn't going to accomplish all that. What the success of Star Wars did was to distract adult attention from ethically mature films where moral choices could be examined in their complexity to such an extent that Hollywood never, all that supportive of such films anyway, simply stopped making such films for a time. The bottom came in 1985 when the two best films to use truly cinematic storytelling to wrestle with mature choices were from Japan. Kurosawa's Ran and Godzilla, 1985. And you know the world's doomed when a big green lizard has to be the one to make you ask important questions about the ecology and history and whatever place in the larger universe our tiny species finds itself. I mentioned Godzilla not simply for rhetoric effect like the old fairy tales. Godzilla is best appreciated by the young and the young at heart. Like the old serial films, the Godzilla films are filled with gaffes and silliness, like the typical Jungian myth or archetype. Godzilla calls to some deeper part of our psyche, which is why we are entertained by his appearance. But unlike Star Wars, the Godzilla films never insist that they are the only show around, or at least the only worth viewing. And unlike Star Wars, they never pretend to be better than they are, or that they're accomplishing some necessary cultural mission. And unlike Star Wars, they do not insist that we remain forever young, only that we respect our having once been young, and that we respect the youth of others. And unlike Star Wars, they are inherent democratic, not because they insist we all be individuals, but rather that they insist that we all are already individuals. And yet, to survive, we must come together and learn to depend on one another. Democracy only has value to a collective of individuals. A human society, rabid individualists are monsters, rather like Godzilla, or I'm sorry, Godzilla's most intractable foe, King Ghidorah. Well, that's the big argument. For those who prefer the simple solutions, Star Wars is a crude, fascist, socially retarded scam, and the ex hippies foisted on what was once a great culture. Whether it will ever achieve greatness again, or whether it shall have cinema, when it does, remains open to the question. Now we see as through a glass, darkly, but then face to face. I don't even know where to start on that one, man. You go into a movie and you take what you take what it gives you, right? I mean, if you go into a movie and uh and everybody hates it, but you love it, that's your opinion. That's great. And this guy, I mean, starting out with Bible verses, I think he's kind of going off a little bit, trying to make it like political, which yeah, there's a little bit of that, those undertones. But again, when you're a child, where this stuff is supposed to inspire you, you know, you don't really pick up on those things. And even nowadays, as a full grown man with my own opinions, I still don't. In Star Wars, democracy is bad. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, you are entitled to your opinion, sir. But with this review and a lot of reading, man, no capitals at any of the sentences in the whole thing. You, sir, are dumbass. Actually, I probably shouldn't assume, sir, ma'am. You are a dumbass. All right. We're gonna say that's a lot of hate when he goes and did a whole little deep dive on the impacts of objectable thinking and things like that. Man, you got 5 haterades. I'm gonna give a lot of 5 haterades. I'm sorry. Anyway, uh did the reviews change my opinion on the movie? No, absolutely not. I mean, heck, I liked Thor Love and Thunder. I'll say it. I have a daughter, and you know what? They gave Thor a daughter, and I think that's awesome. Um, man, this dude started with a Bible verse. You knew it was going to go from there. All right. Anyway, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Fandemic3, or you can go on Facebook and message me at the Fandemic, on TikTok at the Fandemic1. This will be on YouTube as well. So Fandemic 3, I believe, yes. Fandemic. Just look me up under the Fandemic on YouTube. If you want to support the show, there are several ways to do so. You can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/the Fandemic. Find me on Patreon at patreon.com/PVOTN Fandemic. Become an episode assistant, an episode producer, a pre-venge producer like Stacy, or yes, you could be part of the Council of Nerds, starting at $5 a month. You can go to anchor.fm/PVOTN, or if you just want to go to PayPal or Venmo, you can Venmo me at Bradley Butin, and anything I get, we will maybe go to drinks on the podcast. Maybe we'll do a live thing. So just trying to grow this stuff out. So if you don't want to do anything monetarily, just share the show. Give a 5-star review, please. That would help me so much. And you can check out the other podcasts all on the under the Fandemic name. Would be the Fandemic, Prevenge of the Nerds, and A Lone Star. You're going to get that in your feed if you download the app, or if you subscribe to the Fandemic. So 3 shows really all week. So lots there to kind of get a hold of, and they're all kind of connected. They're all connected. So anyway, don't let today end with a why